So really quickly, I just want to kind of gauge the audience. How many of you are instructors who are here? Oh, good number. Okay, how about admins? Do we have some We're like batting 50-50 here. That's awesome. I'm so glad to have you here. All right, how many of you have been using Canvas or haven't used Canvas yet, a year or less? So a year or less or never used Canvas? Okay, a good number. All right, I will say that a lot of what I'm talking about is geared towards not only the beginners, but hopefully if it's not a refresher, it's maybe some things you haven't thought about that you would maybe like to add to your toolbox of things you can be doing with your faculty and your students to make sure they're prepared, to make sure that you're doing everything you can so they have a successful Canvas experience. So a little bit about me, and I hate this and I appreciate the welcome. But so who am I? I have actually been using Canvas since 2012. So I've been using Canvas for 5 years. I'm not only an admin, which I'm an admin of 2 people in my office, which means I basically do everything Canvas. It involves helping faculty, involves helping students, all trainings, instructional design, basically anything other than the back end of Canvas. I am the Canvas person at our college. I do all of it for the last 5 years. In addition to that, I'm also an adjunct instructor of statistics. I love that because it gives me a completely different view of Canvas. So if you're an admin and you're a teacher, you know what I'm talking about because I think it makes me a better admin because before I actually had about a 2-year hiatus where I didn't get to teach. And once I started teaching again, I'm like, oh, that's what my faculty are talking about. Oh, geez, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry I told you that wasn't a big deal. You're right. That really is a big deal. And so I think having that instructor perspective really helps me be a better admin. Along with that, as was said before, I am in the community a little bit. I might go in every 15 minutes or so, maybe, I don't know, to respond to a couple people here and there. But I love the community. It is my second home. I'm also a Canvas coach, which means I kind of get some extra perks and get to really hang out and have a lot of fun in the community. Along with that, I'm also a Canvassador. So if you're not sure what a Canvassador is, the Canvassador tent is actually like almost right out these doors and over there. Go check it out. But basically what it means is I just help promote Canvas and talk about it to anyone who has questions about it that they'd like to refer to me. So, and I tweet every once in a while as well. So other than all of that, why does all of that matter, right? Who cares? You know, what does that have to do with this presentation? Well, what that means is that I have got a huge, it's crazy, my breadth of experience because I come at it from so many different perspectives because I hear the community questions. So I'm not just hearing my local school's questions, I'm seeing all of the questions and all of the things that happen in the community. I talk with schools from all over as being part of a Canvassador to where I'm actually talking one-on-one with people on the phone, or sometimes we even do video web conferencing sessions. So I'm just coming at it from a lot of different perspectives. And I think that really helps because what I see a lot of, and these are just some representative samples, are questions like these. And there's nothing wrong with these questions. It's just I see a lot of these same types of questions, just hide average score, no-take quiz button, auto-populate grade space. Some of you might already be looking at those going, oh, I know exactly what they're talking about. For those of you who don't, that's okay. We're going to get to it. So no worries. Don't worry about it. Also, questions pop up in Twitter all the time. You might not realize it, but your faculty and even your students, they tweet. And they tweet all over about, why is Canvas having problems? What's going on with this? Why can't I do that? Or is there an easy way to do this? And I see these and I try to respond as much as possible. But once again, it gives me a really good impression of what kind of questions and problems our faculty and our students are facing. So what is it they all have in common? So I showed you some questions, right? What's the big thing? Well, the biggest thing for all of these is that they're issues that could be avoided with the right training and support. So I'll be the first person to say Canvas is not perfect. I know, please don't throw things at me. Canvas is not perfect, but with the right training and the right support, a lot of times these issues could be mitigated to where they're non-issues, to where your faculty know what to expect, to where your students know what to expect, they know the limitations, they know what is possible and isn't possible. That gives them a better user experience. So if you're an admin, this makes your life a lot easier. If you're an instructor, it makes your life easier, and you make your students' lives easier. So it's kind of a win-win all the way around. So to start out with, what are some of the top student issues? So once again, I'll say this isn't every student issue. Any of you who deal with help desk, student help desk, you know that crazy stuff happens, right? These are just from all of my work in the community and with my own students, these are some of the top issues I see again and again. So the biggest one, I would say, has to do with grades and feedback, right? So don't understand course grade. How many of your students, and even though I think the grade book is really simple for students, I have students who come and say, I don't understand how this is working. Like, why am I getting this grade? In most cases, it has to do with a course where the grade that's weighted is percentage-based, but we get a lot of students with those issues. The students say, I can't find my instructor feedback. How many of you instructors and admins have heard that one? Yes, yeah, me myself. I mean, and I'm an admin and I teach, and I have my students say, you left me feedback? I'm like, yes, I left you like 2 pages of feedback, and it's annotated, and I like did a video, and you didn't see my feedback. Okay. Like, okay, head desk, and yeah, so that happens, truly. Those of you who are new, I'm just telling you, it will happen. But this is why we're doing this session, so you can help mitigate these problems, so maybe they don't happen quite as often to you. Also, missing assignments. And what I mean by missing assignments are the students who will come up to you and say, I turned that assignment in. And you're like, well, it's not there. And you're like, well, yeah, but I turned it in. And they're like, but I'm not seeing it. And then they contact the admin, and the admin says, I'm not seeing it. And the student says, but I did it. And you just turn into this really awful circular thing, and it's no fun. Just trust me. Access. I mean, obviously, you can see access. Access to everything. I can't get into Canvas. I can't get into my course. I can't get into that module, that assignment, that content. Access is just a huge issue for students. Normally, though, and in fact, this one I would say is probably the easiest one to fix. In all honesty, this is the easiest one to fix, but it's also one of the most common you hear. Then submitting assignments. Submit assignments button is missing. So how many of you have heard, like, the submit button is missing, or the quiz button is missing, or the discussion post button is missing? Yeah, we get that a lot too. Also, your last discussion post, or lost the discussion post. I don't know about you guys, but I have students who write some amazing, amazing discussions, and they're on Wi-Fi, and they click submit, and guess what happened? That post is gone, baby, gone. And the students are really traumatized by that, because I don't know about you, but I've had that happen to me as well. I've learned that lesson the really, really hard way, both as a student and as a teacher, and so it happens, and then we get students asking, well, can you get it back? And what happened to my work? And they're really traumatized, and it's awful to do that to students. You know, students have a hard enough time trying to focus on the content. They don't need that technology issue, right? Then also just can't post to a discussion. I actually have been dealing with that one a lot this summer. I'm not sure why, but been dealing with a lot of that one. Also general, just overall, how to get started, trying to get everything into the mobile, or trying to do everything in mobile. I love mobile. Don't get me wrong, I have my flying panda from Ryan, so I love mobile. But when your students try to do everything in mobile, sometimes it just doesn't work. And so we've been getting a lot more, as students use mobile more and more, the students are like, well, why can't I do that? Or why isn't this working? And it's like, well, it's not perfect. And you know, you can't always do everything. And if you don't have a great connection, it doesn't work. So that happens. Also, not knowing that X was scheduled changed. This just kind of relates to notifications. So what are your top instructor issues? So these are your things that, as an instructor, and we have a lot of great instructors here, you might have faced these issues. So as you're looking, you're probably like, oh yeah, that made that mistake. Oh, yep, that happened to me. And so what are some of these? Grade book. I would say the grade book is one of the biggest one. So initially, setting up the grade book is easy, but faculty sometimes have some serious questions about how you can make that grade book really work for the way they want their class to be run. And it's important that you make sure that your instructor is has the instructor set up the way they want. Treat ungraded as 0. Okay, how many of you have been busted by that one? Yeah, we got the boos in the audience. Yeah, we'll get to that one if you don't know what we're talking about, but yeah, treat ungraded as 0 is a big one. Extra credit. How many of you have been burned by extra credit? Yes, burned by extra credit. Content, setting up quizzes. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions I see in the community, and even from my own instructors, is they have very specific ways they want quizzes set up, and they're not sure how to do that. And I will be the first to admit also, quizzes have a lot of settings, and sometimes those settings can be confusing. Let's knock on wood that new quizzes might be a little more straightforward, but right now, to get quizzes set up exactly the way you want them, it can take some mental brain power, like really, really thinking about it. Accidentally deleting things. Yeah, everyone laughs at that one. Even me, like, oh yeah, I've been there. Copying in Canvas. So Canvases, they've gotten better with the copying, right? But copying has always been a big issue. Also, deleting from modules. So here's a big one. Deleting from modules does not actually delete the content. So if you are new to Canvas, I'm just telling you right now, because we make this mistake all the time. If you delete something from modules, unless it's like a URL or a link to something, it does not actually delete it from your course. It just removes it from the module. So right there. So students, what kind of student issues? Course content isn't showing up to students. Students can't submit assignments. Missing student communications. And then just general overall how to get started. Can't access Canvas and can't find the course. So here's all of these issues, right? So what's the purpose of this, right? What is the purpose of this presentation? What's this purpose of, okay, we know students and faculty are having these problems, what can we do? Well, for me, the biggest thing, and this is something I truly 100% believe in, is you need to figure out the best way to provide support to your users. And that doesn't matter if you're an instructor or if you're an admin. If you're an admin, then hopefully that means you're providing support to both your instructors and your students. If you're an instructor, then that means how can you provide the best support to your students? Even if that's just telling them where they need to go for help, you need to make sure you know. So for support, this is something I really believe in. Also in the community, I have links to, so if you're interested, and actually I've got a document that has all of this information as well as like links to extra resources for all of this that you will all have access to. It'll just be freely available. But one of them is I freely give out my online student and instructor training courses. And these are completely online training courses. We actually don't have our students or our faculty come in for face-to-face training. They do it all completely online. And the entire training course we have available in Commons. Anyone can use it, anyone can edit it, tweak it, and I provide extra information about that in the community. And honestly, even take it, use it, tweak it, delete it, take a module out of it, but in all honesty, training is so important. And even if you need to do face-to-face, if you love doing face-to-face, I personally, it just doesn't work for how our faculty work and our situation. But you know what? If you do face-to-face training, do a hybrid mix of some face-to-face and some online to back it up. Do a full course like I do. If you're an instructor and you don't have the admin support, put a module in your class at the very beginning of your class. But seriously, you need to let people know how to get started. You need to let people know, where to go to get help. You need to provide this information. It's just paramount because otherwise you're going to get really frustrated students or really frustrated instructors. And I will say in the community, a lot of that I see where an instructor will come in and be really frustrated, and it's just because they didn't realize that what they're trying to do isn't possible, or they didn't realize, there's all of these guides and they're amazing. And you show them the guides, they're like, oh, thank you, I wish I knew about them. And so just providing just that initial level support. So whether it's face-to-face, online, a hybrid mix, whether it's one module in your class, just providing some kind of training, some kind of something to your students, to your instructors, is just going to be huge in regards to paying back that you're not going to be answering all of these questions, and you're not going to have people who are frustrated. Because think about it, when you're frustrated, can you concentrate on what you really need to do? No, I don't know about you, but when I'm really frustrated, a lot of times I just have to take a step back, right? Well, your students need to be focusing on the content, right? Do they need to be worrying and messing around with the technology? No, you want that technology to be as transparent as possible. And while Canvas provides a really great base, I think in general, Canvas is super easy to use, if you don't give the students the right tools to get in, find what they need, and know where to get help, then you're going to get students who aren't focusing on the content, they're focusing on the technology, and that's not where you want them to be focusing on. Likewise for instructors, instructors have a really important job because they need to be getting that content into the course, or they need to be teaching that content. So I don't want my instructors, troubleshooting students a lot, because that's my job, and because they have content that they're supposed to be delivering. They have, interactions they should be having with students. They shouldn't be playing tech support. Likewise, I don't want my instructors sitting there. In fact, I have what I call my 10-minute rule with my instructors. I tell my instructors, whatever it is you're trying to do, give it 10 minutes. 10 real, honest minutes of trying to figure out how to do it. In general, with Canvas, I think you could figure out just about anything normally in 10 minutes. If you can't do it in 10 minutes, I said, and that involves whether you look at the guides, whether you go to our training course, whatever. If you can't figure it out, I said, then email me, call me, stop by the office, whatever, and I'll be happy to help. But I said, give me 10 minutes. But longer than that, because think about it, after 10 minutes, they just get more frustrated. They're wasting their time. They're not building their course, or they're not interacting with students. They're worrying about the technology. So whatever works for you, but let your faculty know not only where they can go for help and provide them with some resources and access to resources, but kind of let them know that it's okay to contact you, hopefully, right? Because I don't know about you, but I get paid to have people contact me and like ask for help. So when people apologize, I'm like, no, I get paid for this. Like, you're making sure I have job security. So make sure your faculty and students know that you're there for them, but at the same time, educate them. We're educators, so educate them on where they can go to get their own help and where they don't have to be contacting you all of the time with it. So Canvas guides, I kind of mentioned that. If you're new, or even if you're not, and you haven't gotten in and you don't have that guides bookmark like linked and like everything there, you need to go do it. Because seriously, we came from a learning management system where I told faculty, do not look at the guides, they are not helpful. You laugh because you probably came from the same one or similar. But in all honesty, the Canvas guides, exactly opposite. The Canvas guides are phenomenal. In fact, we direct the students and faculty to the guides all the time. They're continually updated, so every time you have an update cycle, you're getting the freshest, best updates. In fact, we used to document and do all of our documentation in-house. We don't do that anymore because the guides are so awesome. We might provide a little, like, this is how we do this at our school, but then we link to the guide for the actual, this is how you use the tool. Just because they are such great resources. And then just knowing where to go for help. So every school is different. For us, I'm fine with my faculty contacting me directly or clicking on that help link in Canvas because ultimately it just comes to me anyway. But whatever works for your school, just make sure everyone knows about it. So like we have an informational campaign at the beginning of every semester, then about 2 weeks in, because no one actually reads my emails at the beginning of the semester, reminding people, hey, remember me? I'm here to help. We send it out to students. In fact, we send out throughout the semester, we send reminders to students. So about 2 weeks in, we send a reminder to students saying, hey, you remember that what if grade thing we told you about? Go check it out, because now they actually have grades and they want to actually figure things out. With faculty, we use Dropout Detective, so we're reminding faculty throughout the semester. So sending out reminders of where to go for help, sending out links to guides, or just anything you can do so faculty and students know where to go for help, what are the best avenues to reach out to you, is just so important. So now on to some more fun stuff, right? This is what you're really here for. The tips to help avoid all of those potential pitfalls. So, right, we were talking about all of those issues. And issues aren't fun. We don't want issues. We want it all to be wonderful. So what are some great tips for your students? So first of all, with grades and feedback, and this actually became important to me, strangely enough, just yesterday, double check that you actually turned something in. I know that sounds crazy, right? So when students submit an assignment, I always tell my students, go back. You can go back to that assignment and actually click on your assignment and make sure your assignment opens. And I actually, because as a presenter, we got to turn in our presentations to a Canvas course, and I actually did double check that mine worked. Well, then someone emailed me and said, oh, we don't have your presentation. Well, I was a good student, and I said, yes, you do, and I even checked, and it opens. And they went back, they're like, well, you're right, we do have it. And I'm like, I know, because I am a good student. But right there, just telling your students, whether that's telling your students in your syllabus, whether it's telling your students in a, tips in your first module of your class, whether it's you as an admin and you're doing some kind of training with your students. Just make sure they know, double check. Every time you submit something, go back and just double check that it really is there. The check grades page. I know this sounds crazy, but sometimes students just click on that grades link and they don't actually go and look at the individual grades. That sounds crazy, but I do. I get students all the time who they're like, why am I getting this grade? And I'm like, well, did you look at the grades page to see the different, and they're like, And I'm like, just click for me, okay? And then also clicking on the grade icons. So how many of you, this goes back to that feedback question, right? You did these pages of awesome, amazing, it took me like a day to do all of this feedback, and the students were like, what feedback? That's because they're not clicking the little icons, they're not doing that. So I always tell my students, click. If you see an icon, click on it. Please click on it. That's so important. What if grades? We do have students who don't realize The what if grades, will help them kind of determine, what do I need to get on my final? What do I need to get on my midterm? I love the what if grades, and I will tell you that we went from our previous learning management system where students were like, what do I need to do, or where am I at, and how do I know, to now we really don't get too many because we just promote the heck out of the what if grades. So what if grades, they will be your best friend either as an instructor or an admin. Technology. So you remember the whole access thing? Well, other than making sure the instructors published everything, yes, switching browsers. So have multiple browsers. This is a huge thing both for instructors and students, actually. Have multiple browsers, and I'll probably, whatever, but don't use IE and Edge. Just friends don't let friends use IE. They don't. I love you, so please don't, like all of you. Don't use IE and Edge, see? Yes. You're welcome. Okay, I will say there are caveats. I know there are certain programs and certain things that you have to use IE for them to work. I don't understand why anyone would do that, but I understand. But other than that, anything else, I will tell you 9 times out of 10, if a student says, my submit button isn't showing up, I thought I submitted an assignment, but it's not going through, the quiz button isn't showing up, any weird, quirky thing with students having things not show up, I tell them, switch to Firefox or Chrome, and magically it works. Or if I say, clear the cache, get rid of your cookies, and things magically work. And a lot of times for students, if they kind of look at you like, clear the cache? What, cookies? I'm not hungry. Like, what? If you just tell them to switch browsers, normally that's enough right there. So no IE Edge, have multiple browsers on your computer, and just switch back and forth. Personally, I normally have Chrome and Firefox running, one on one screen, one on the other, all day long, and I just switch back and forth between the two of them. Submitting assignments, students sometimes don't realize, and neither do faculty, that a student can go in and out of a quiz as long as the time limit's not up. So faculty, that might be really scary, so take that into consideration with your time limit. For your students, if you want them to be able to go in and out, make sure they realize that, because I've seen it either direction, where students like, oh, I got kicked out of my quiz, and I'm like, well, your time limit's not up, why don't you go back in? And they're like, I can go back in? And I'm like, yeah, you could. So just make sure your students realize that. Copy it, save. So you remember the students losing discussion posts? Yes, this is the hard lesson I've learned myself, and what I always tell my students, and I encourage our faculty to tell our students, is either do it in a Word document, do it in some other thing and copy and paste it into the discussion, or do it in the discussion, copy it, then press submit, make sure it's there. But honestly, I like having it in another source just so I have my own copy, just in case. Don't rely on the to-do list. Okay, how many of you have students who say, but it wasn't in the to-do list? You mean there was an explanation for how to do that somewhere? I just went to the assignment from the to-do list. Yeah, oh my gosh, my students, all the time. Which is actually why I provide the link to the directions in the assignment directions, just like here's the link to more stuff. But in all honesty, you want to make sure your students know, do not live and die by the to-do list or the calendar. They really need to go to whatever you're using. Hopefully you're using modules, but whatever it is, you want to make sure your students know, don't live and die by the to-do list. Download the Canvas app. Canvas app is good. I can't do everything, but it's really great. Customize your notifications. It's so important that students customize their notifications. So if something changes, there's a grade, there's a comment, they get that information, and just make sure they know where to go to help, where to go to get help. Tips for instructors. All right, this is getting good. So check your gradebook, or check your gradebook settings, and then go back and check them all over again. Now, if you're doing a points-based gradebook, you're probably fine. If you're doing percentage, just go back and double check. And if you're doing extra credit, then you might want to double check with someone else even. I will tell you, extra credit can be a bear. It really can. In the course that I've created, or not the course, but the page where I've got all of this content, I'll have links to where you can go to get tips and tricks for extra credit, because in all honesty, there's so many variations of how you could do extra credit based on how you want your course to run. I could sit up here and just do a whole session on extra credit. I won't do that for you, but I will give you all of the links to where you can go and find the information. So depending on how you do extra credit, you can see the best way to set it up in the gradebook. But my big thing here is just make sure you realize extra credit can be tricky. I've had instructors who've said, why are my students getting 140% in my class? it happens, and it's no fault to the instructor. They thought they had it set up correctly, and this is why you just really want to double check that. Especially, and this is something I hate when it happens, is that the instructor gets to the end of the semester and then they realize they had a problem with it, and all semester those students weren't seeing accurate grades, and you just, yeah, oh God, if I had a penny for every time that's happened in my life, So you really want to make sure the gradebook setup, your extra credit setup, because you don't want to be giving students inaccurate information, not only because then you kind of have to have egg on your face and tell students, okay, that grade is really not right, but think about the students who maybe thought they were doing better than they were. Yeah, you want those students to have that accurate grade. And this is might be silly, or I do that. So inner zero. So inner zero is for missing work. So you remember when I said don't use, the one button that says, put zeros in the grade book, right? Why? Because those zeros don't actually count. They're just for you as the instructor to see what the grade would be if all of those missing grades were 0. So they don't actually count. The student doesn't see that grade. What you have to do as an instructor is actually go in and put a 0 for every single missing assignment. You can also go through and use your different assignment ones and do that, but you have to go in and do that. So content, check your quiz images. I don't know how many instructors I've had who the quiz image didn't come through. File organization is really important. You want to make sure that you can find your files. I can't count the number of times I've lost a file. I know it's here and I can't find it. Page naming schemes, and that sounds silly again too, but when you're looking through 1 million pages, or like me, I probably have 200 pages, you want to make sure you can find the page that you're looking for. Publishing can get really confusing as well. You just want to make sure, and you're publishing your course, that you check everything is published the way you want it. So is your course published? Do you have the modules published? Do you have the content within the modules published, or are they published but not the module? It can get confusing, so just make sure you're watching. Let's see, students include course name as part of the group. I actually hadn't thought of that one, but students just see all of their groups from every course in a list when they click on groups, and if you don't put your course name, they might not know which group it goes with. So that was I thought that was a cool one. Also, make sure students know where to go when they need help. So a little bit more for settings. Did all of you know that there's those extra settings, right, under course settings? So if you go to course settings, there's this little itty-bitty link and it says more options. Click more options. Click on it, and you get this many more options underneath it. And you want to go see those. So please go look at all of the different options. Students can create groups if you don't have that unchecked. They can edit, delete discussions. They can attach files, which you might want. You might want to block them from getting in or out of the course before or after the due dates. Quiz settings, oh my gosh, quiz settings are crazy. I have an entire document in the community just dedicated to that I've actually linked to that will help you work your way through quiz settings. Moderate settings for quizzes. Some people don't realize that if you want to extend time for one student or you want to allow just one student to take the quiz in extra time, there's moderate quiz settings as well. Attendance, yes, do not delete attendance out of your gradebook. You can hide it, you can mute it, you can make it not count as a grade, but do not delete it. There's your tip. Technology is kind of similar for the students. Have multiple browsers, don't use Edge. Link validator. Everyone know about link validator? So you've got 1 million links in your class, right, to all these external sources or maybe within your class. If you go to settings in your course, over on your right-hand bar, there'll be something called link validator. If you click on it, it will actually check all of your links in your course and then you can then click on a button and it will take you back to wherever that link is having a problem. And it's not perfect, but I tell you, I would rather do that than go through every single page of every single one of my courses and try to figure out which one isn't. Download this Canvas app and the SpeedGrader app. In general, just make sure you preview your course in Student View, customize your own notifications, and ask for help. All right, so tricks. Now this is gonna make you a hero at home, right? So, grade history. You all know that there's a grade history, right? So when you accidentally, delete that grade, you can go to your grade history in your grade book, and as long as it hasn't reached that maximum critical stage, so if you have a huge class, this doesn't work perfect, but if you've got a more smaller class, you can do the grade history. Page history, this is a great unknown. So let's say you make a really big mistake on a page and you think, I'm just, out of luck. There's actually a page history that allows you to revert back to previous editions of your page. It's beautiful. Undelete. Yeah. How many of you realize that if you accidentally delete something, and it doesn't work for everything, but for a lot of things, you can actually go into your course and do your main module page, do /undelete, and you can see a list of all the things you've deleted, and you can restore them back to your class. Yeah, and I've got how to do that will be in the course. It's really awesome. Canvancements. If you're in the community, hopefully you've heard of Canvancements. So what if you wanted to change all assignment due dates on one page? You can't do that in Canvas, right? You can there's a Canvancement for it. And what that is an enhancement to Canvas. It's completely free. Instructors can use it just on their own. They don't need any extra help. It's Canvancement. Also, upload a rubric to Canvas. So what if you could create a rubric in Excel and upload it into Canvas? Would that not be a beautiful thing? What if you could then rearrange the order of the rows? You can do that with a Canvancement. These are all completely free resources. They're even on GitHub for free. You do not need to be a programmer. You don't need to be a coder. You don't need to know anything other than how to click a button to download something and click one more button to download something. That's all you need to know to be able to use these in most cases. If you're interested in these, also reorder dashboard course cards. Yeah, you can do it. It's really awesome. But there is actually a session on it this afternoon at 3:10 or 3:15. It's right after the Knock Your Socks Off event. It's called Accomplish the Impossible. That will go into all of the details because there's more than that. Yes? These are outside. These are outside, but I will tell you that the programmer who writes them, that if you notify him that it's not working, he normally will then go in within the day and get it back to working again. So these are not supported by Canvas, but they don't break anything in Canvas, and if it doesn't work, if you let them know, it normally will get updated. Grading gradebook, speed grader, sort settings, that's really nice. Speed grader, keyboard shortcuts, mute assignments. Some people didn't realize if you don't want students to see, if you want to grade all of them before students see the grades, you can mute that assignment. Message students who, so if you want to message all students who scored below something or above something, you can do that, and I love that for students who did really well or not so well. Miscellaneous, use question banks to copy questions. Yes, you can do that. It's a really awesome thing. Hack mastery paths. So you can hack mastery paths to give your students a choice between two different assignments, and then they'll only see those assignments. Use requirements, prerequisites to help show students what they've done or haven't done in your class. And also change the color and add nicknames to your course cards. And that might sound similar, that might, no-brainer, but I get a lot of my faculty who didn't realize they could do that. So is support really that important, right? So I really said support's really important, right? So every year, I poll my students and my faculty. So ever since we've been using Canvas, so 5 years, I poll my students and faculty and say, how is it going with Canvas? What are you thinking? Well, for 2007, 96% of our students, now granted, I will say this isn't every student because I can't make every student participate, but for the students who participated in the survey we send out, and I send out multiple reminders, 96% of students indicated they were having a positive to very positive experience with Canvas. I like that number. That to me tells me not only am I doing a good job, my faculty are doing an awesome job, right? Because students normally will tell you if they don't like something, right? So if students weren't liking something, my guess is when they saw that tell me what you think of Canvas survey link, they would have gone on there and they would have shredded me, right? So granted, it's not 100% response rate, but I'll still take it. But you say, so what do our faculty think? So how do faculty think of Canvas and how it's going? Yes, people, it is a panda riding a unicorn with a rainbow mane. That's how awesome it is here. So spring 2017, 100% of our faculty, so once again, who participated in the survey, indicated they were having a positive to very positive experience with Canvas. So think about it. When you take a survey, when you're really happy or you really hate something, right? The fact that I had 100% of my faculty who responded say that they were really happy with it, that was so huge to me because that, for me, that's my metric of whether or not I'm doing my job. Because if our faculty aren't happy, I'm not doing my job because it's my job to support them so they can do the big job of support and teach our students. So for me, this is really crucial. And for me, this is because we've got the training in place, because the faculty and students know where to go for support, because we're sending out those emails, because literally, and I'm crazy, but I will respond at 3 a.m. I'll respond at 2 a.m. Whenever it is, I respond to my faculty. It doesn't matter, and they know that they've got me, and I will help support them. So make sure, if you're the instructor, that your students know, maybe not at 2 a.m. that you'll respond, but that you'll be there for them. And as an admin, make sure everyone knows, everyone that you can support that you will be the support for them and help. So my overall recommendations: implement training orientation, use the Canvas guides. Please use the guides. Make sure everyone at your school knows where to get help. Send out key reminders throughout the semester. And please come hang out with me in the community. It's the place to be. If you're not in the community, I can't say enough. Go get in. If you're not sure how to do, or like, what is the community? Where do I go to get in the community? It sounds like this spy club or something. Where is it at? There's actually a tent where registration is. Over on the left, there's the tents with the UX, and there's a Canvas area. They will help get you into the community. They'll answer any questions you have. But seriously, that's probably the best tip. Go get in the community. Community shout out, because I use the community, I actually asked community members to tell me some of their top tips, tricks, recommendations, and here were some of the amazingly awesome people who responded, and so I told them I would put them on my slideshow, so here they are. I didn't fib on that one, and they also will get some points and a badge from me in the community, so thank you. Here's the resources. So you remember how I said I'll have all of this stuff in? I haven't posted it yet. I was waiting to finish the presentation, see if something came up and needed to tweak it or whatever, but probably within the next 3 or 4 days, it will be up, and all of the resources will be links to everything I talked about. Otherwise, put your credits. Oh, sorry. I know, that's the only thing you really care about, is where can I go to get all of these resources. Also, if you just go into the community and do a search for the name of this, Don't Blame Canvas, all of this stuff, you'll be able to pop it up. Yes? How do you find my training course in Commons? That's a great question. All you need to do is go into Commons and type in my name, and it should bring up my content. Or you can go into the community and type in like student orientation, faculty orientation, and it'll bring up my document, and I've got information and even links to the course so you can see it before. Yeah, I have links so you can see it before you download it from Commons too, so you know what you're getting before you download that course. Any other questions, or you just want to all go check out the course? I know, that's it. Thank you.